Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining today's Microsoft Marketplace guest speaker series. My name is Justin Royal, and I'm the community manager for Marketplace Community here at Microsoft. Super excited to have you joining us here today. If you haven't been to one of our office hours events before, this is a monthly offering where we have either a partner-focused monthly office hour, a customer-focused office hour, or in some cases, we have a guest speaker come in and chat about all things Marketplace. So super excited to have you here today, and we will get started in just a minute. Today's session will be focused on maximizing selling with Microsoft and Marketplace ROI. We have Amit Sinha and Richard Jean Felix from WorkSpan joining us here today. So super excited to have our WorkSpan friends joining us. And as we get started, I do want to encourage everybody who's watching live today to contribute your questions into the chat. We will have time for a live Q&A at the end of today's session. If you are watching this session on demand, you can definitely still engage and ask questions through our Marketplace community. If you're not a member of the community already, definitely check out the link below and join aka.ms/community/marketplace. You can access this event as well as all of our prior community events and look at what we have coming up on the schedule. You can also engage with our Marketplace discussion board, connect with Microsoft subject matter experts and other partners. So again, if you're not a member of the community already, definitely join today and subscribe so you can get notifications on all of our new content. So with that being said, we will go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for joining, and Amit and Richard, I will go ahead and pass it over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Justin. What a joy and privilege to be here with the Microsoft Marketplace community. I'm joined by my colleague, Richard John Felix. Richard is our cloud marketplace architect in our business consulting and solution engineering team. And folks, I'm Amit Sinha, co-founder and president here at WorkSpan. Hey, welcome, Richard.
Amit, how are you doing today?
Doing great. So with that, why don't we establish our credentials first, and then we'll dive right into the topic. So this is all about the AI-powered partnerships, how you can win in the Microsoft ecosystem by aligning your listings, your co-sell and marketplace, all powered with the power of AI. If you look at the next slide, Richard, the WorkSpan performance that we've seen with the Microsoft Marketplace and co-sell capability is simply astounding. Just this fiscal year, we have participated in closed-won partner sales of $4.6 billion across thousands and thousands of opportunities across several customers, both ISVs as well as services partners. So based on this background of research, we bring to you our insights and our knowledge with this community, sharing it openly with you for interaction. And the format is very, very simple. Richard and I are going to have a simple conversation. And through the conversation, we hope to illustrate the ins and outs of the marketplace. So Richard, for the first question, you spent years working with these companies and partners, navigating the Microsoft co-sell listing marketplace process, stuff that WorkSpan does. Let's start simple. What's actually changing right now with the Microsoft ecosystem?
So what's the biggest shift right now is partners are no longer competing on effort. They're competing on intelligence. Marketplace is becoming the default procurement channel. Co-sell is the motion, and AI is becoming the operating system behind it all. The partners that are winning are the ones who figured out how to connect all three. So when we're looking at the use or the procurement reality, this is where we're looking at the committed spend driver, the procurement simplicity changes, the ecosystem that's reshaping partner relationships, and the AI automation that is now starting to take that to that next level and actually push the scale, to a whole different level that no one even thought about 5 years ago.
Absolutely. So, Richard, we hear a lot about this marketplace growth. Jay McBain talks about how marketplace is going to be, like by 2030, $160 billion big, right? This is huge growth of marketplace as a channel itself. But at the same time, no customer wakes up in the morning and says, I got to check out some software from a marketplace today. From your perspective, what's fundamentally different about how software is being bought today?
So it's the procurement process, it's the steps that are taken. And what sellers need to do is that they need to introduce marketplace early, not only at the procurement or after the quote's been signed or they got a deal and everything is ready to go. The best partners position marketplace as a buying advantage from the first conversation. So when that BDR, SDR is having that call with the prospect, that's where the conversation starts from there. Then the seller, once it's moved over and they're taking over, that's when they need to actually sit there and say, hey, we've talked about marketplace, you guys know about it, the interest is there. Now let's move forward and kind of go from there. This is what aligns them with the Microsoft sellers. And this is what also helps accelerate the deals.
Absolutely. And I think I really like something that you just mentioned, which is that, you have to start way early. You have to kind of align the marketplace even before. So when you shift left from the transaction itself, that happens over the Microsoft commercial marketplace, is a co-sell process itself, right? So while the co-sell process is ongoing, companies have to position the marketplace, or partners have to position the marketplace as a vehicle to transact, because that's where much of the decision making is actually happening on the solution, but also on the way to buy as well, utilizing the cloud commitments, for example, or Mac commits, for example. Fantastic. And Richard, having worked with all these partners, how should partners adjust their sales motions because of that?
So now we're talking about, the next slide that I have up here. So we're talking about the common pitfalls. So there's 7 common mistakes, which is also the biggest mistakes that we, any partner, anyone that's selling kind of looks at. So when you're treating a marketplace as just a listing requirement, co-sell is not really in your thought process. You're not really looking at it and using it as the procurement. You're not really putting marketplace into the conversation. If you're waiting till the end of the deal, like we just talked about, you have to put marketplace out there from the very start. Then if they have a poor listing experience, and what I mean by that is that the listing is incomplete. It doesn't really explain the true value of the product that's there. The messaging is not there. You're missing assets that, kind of reduce that trust and that conversion. If you're ignoring the co-sell and seller enablement, so sellers now, they're not activated and they're not enabled to truly understand, how do I do co-sell? So it's a matter of they need to understand the marketplace side of it, as well as they need to understand the advantages behind it and kind of pushing that through. Not using private offers strategically. So if you don't leverage private offers, if you don't leverage the commitment spend buy down, if you don't talk about those things, then there's a matter of when it comes to the reporting. The reporting is the tracking, the performance visibility, everything that you need to see. So this way you can actually truly understand, oh, I am scaling, because of the fact that now I can see how all these deals are going. I can see the progression of that deal cycle actually shortening. So where it used to normally take me on a direct deal side, take me anywhere from 90 to 120 or even longer, now I've closed that deal cycle to where my deals are happening within, 45, 60 days or even shorter, depending on the industry vertical and all the other information. Then the biggest part, and you and I know this because we've talked about this all the time, repeatability and internal processes. So it's a matter of having that correct solution, that correct process, that correct enablement. All of those things are there. So, as you can see on the screen there, mistakes cost revenue. So if you can avoid all these pitfalls, then what you've done, fix the foundation, build a repeatable, scalable marketplace motion that delivers real revenue.
Absolutely, Richard. These are 7 common pitfalls that we've seen. Seven sins, if you will. If you were to pick one of these mistakes, which one is it that you feel companies do repeatedly?
I'm going to go, you know what? That's a great question. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to go with number 1, number 4, and number 7.
Okay.
And the reason I went with number 1 first is because we've always heard, well, I have a marketplace listing. The common thing that happens globally is that a lot of ISVs feel that as soon as I create a marketplace listing, everyone's going to come by. As soon as I create it, Microsoft is going to send me all these co-sell referrals. They have to build their own foundation. They have to build the process. Marketplace is there for the procurement, for the ease, for the co-sell, but you have to build all these motions or whatever, and you have to get past all these pitfalls.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now let's chat a little bit about the co-sell engine. Every partner wants more engagement from Microsoft sellers, but not everybody gets that, right? So what actually drives the seller engagement from the Microsoft side? First, let's talk about the Microsoft side, and then we'll talk a little bit about your own company sellers as well.
Okay. So of course, the number 1 factor is simple. Does your solution drive Azure consumption? Now we hear that on every single call. If you know, all of our colleagues, all of our partners that are currently watching this right now, if they don't understand, that's how Microsoft sellers are measured. It's all based upon consumption. If you align your value to that, everything else becomes easier. So you now start looking and saying, okay, does this align? Does this align? This is where the point of all the pitfalls. Literally, you start to pretty much get everything going. And as you can see on the slide, is that there's no one arrow pointing in one direction.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually showing you these are steps. But the bullet point that's there is showing you how those arrows, those points, everything that's there, whatever, can actually be pointed back. So you can point 7 back to 1. You can point 1 back to 4. You can do all these different things, but it's a matter of doing these steps and actually following it and staying true to that. This is where it becomes easy for them to go. You want to make them say yes and be a champion for your solution. You want the Azure sellers to actually go in, and when they see an opportunity coming from you, you want them to actually rush and say, yeah, I need to accept. I need to go. We've had great things that, are happening here. This is what makes sure that Microsoft sellers are prioritizing not just you, but they're prioritizing the product. They're prioritizing the benefit for the end customer. So these are things that are important on that side.
Yeah, a couple of pointers from my side. One is, imagine the Microsoft seller. They have so many partners, and they have their unique customer that they are trying to, help get to the next level, right? So they have to think through all these things at the same time. So how do you make it easy for them? Easy for them to understand the Better Together story, right? Once you get that for the line of business audience or the IT audience, pick your audience. But once the Better Together story clicks in, come with case studies, come with prior wins. Make it easy for them to really understand the value prop and who they can actually align you with, so that they can open the right doors for you. I've seen that when that click happens for the sales team, and the Microsoft sellers in particular, they're able to quickly see where the partner solution adds value already and how they can actually unlock new doors. So the Better Together story and case studies would be my next big recommendation.
Absolutely. 1000% agree with you. The story that we tell to our customers, the insight that we bring, that's important because they need to understand, the best partners optimize the seller experience, not just the customer experience.
Absolutely. And as part of that co-sell process, Richard, you and I have worked a lot on this space. Like one of the things that we provide our partners with is the ability to provide contextual emails as background, introducing the sellers together, right? So this is where the partner managers can utilize some of the tooling that WorkSpan has. in customizing the message to exactly how Microsoft sellers want to see it. Tell me the
Right.
Azure consumption. Tell me which person and line of business are you hitting. Tell us the joint, better together story, and tell me one case study that's relevant to this, right? So in the format that they wanted, imagine every single email that gets out in first contact to the seller kind of gives all of that in a very concise way. And then you can take it from there as to what the guidance is and the next steps are. And
Right.
having
And
this
see what
co-sell
you just spoke.
automation.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry about that.
Go ahead, Richard, please.
No, what I was going to say, and I apologize for jumping in because your talk track was bringing me. What you described was literally points 4 through 7. So
Mhm.
you're activating the partner engagement. You're showing proven results.
Right.
You're easing. You're making it easy to work with, as well as you're providing that visibility to sellers. So
Yeah.
all of this is building up that trust, that engagement, and now they understand. Like, you really know exactly what you're talking about. You really understand your product, and that Azure seller is doing the same.
Absolutely. I want to double click on that visibility with sellers, right? This is absolutely the nugget of co-sell automation, if you will. The fact that your CRM is connected with the Microsoft Partner Center, what it means is that your close date, your deal size, your steps on the deal as you make progress, as you go through the stages, right, is already mapped because of this integration. So those happen to be weekly nudges to the Microsoft sellers as well. They can see that you're active in the deal. The deal is constantly getting updated with the next stages and the next actions, right? And that visibility creates that substrate on which trust is built. And ultimately, that's the trust is being translated into co-sell win and ultimately into marketplace success.
Absolutely.
Awesome. If we talk about, so we've talked about marketplace, we've talked about the co-sell. We've talked a lot about AI in the context of partnerships as well. Where are you actually seeing AI make a difference in your customer engagements, Richard?
So the biggest impact AI is having right now is solving the attention problem. So partner teams are managing hundreds of signals. They got pipeline, co-sell, marketplace incentives, and no human can process all of that effectively or remember it effectively every single deal and every single, because there's different nuances that comes in. AI filters that down into what matters right now and what should I do next.
Absolutely. So if I think about the AI advantage, Richard, if a couple of things that comes to mind for me here. One is the partnerships as a business function has never received the entire headcount request ever, right? And if not, this is one team that has always been short on staff, right? But AI, here comes AI, and it really solves with the agents and teammates that can be added, whether it's the pipeline agent or the marketplace agent or the partnership agent itself. It provides that scale that partnerships teams have always kind of missed in the equation. So imagine if you are one partner manager covering a large territory of partners, right? Let's say North America. You may have 10,000 accounts here, right? It's impossible humanly for a partner manager to sit on every account and advise every seller in the company on what the next best action with Microsoft is. But if you teach it to the AI, right, you can definitely get that coverage, that simple account coverage, if you will. And that's where the seller advantage comes in, right in their CRM. If every seller gets the AI advantage of what could Microsoft do in this account for me, even before they send the opportunity, or even before they think about the transaction, right? It kind of pre-informs them. It gets the enablement going, right? Second is if I think about AI and the seller is now motivated to work with Microsoft, right? But they lack and they are going to go in front of the Microsoft seller, or hell, if they're getting in front of the customer as well. This is where they have to have the right contextual content, if you will, right? And this is where I think AI has taken a lot of work as well. So I remember all these partner managers, slaving over the better together story, but applied to banking or applied to healthcare or applied to a particular customer in that segment, right? all this context personalization, if you will, kind of goes away. You can actually rely on AI a lot more. You can, of course, review the work and make sure that everything that passes the desk is eventually human reviewed. But that time that it takes, like 40 to 50 minutes to kind of generate that kind of content, can be cut down to 5 minutes, let's say. And these are like death by 1,000 cuts, if you will, on time that can be given back.
So that's the biggest thing that we see is time. So when you're talking about every single thing, and as everyone can see on this slide, we're talking about the business impact. So first and foremost is save time. So you automate the manual work and accelerate all the execution part. You increase the focus because now the seller, for that specific deal, they know exactly where to act for the biggest impact. It also helps drive growth, more co-sell, more deals, more agile consumption. And that's achieved because you've actually saved time. So where you just said it would take 40, 50 minutes, now it's kind of brought down to they can do all of those actions. So the 6 actions you see here, they can do that in 5 minutes. Now what that does is that it opens up their focus is there. Now it also drives the growth, because now instead of taking 40 minutes to do an action for one deal, now they could take 5 minutes, complete that action, and move on to the next deal. Now you're driving the growth. So this is where you get what we always talked about is build advantage. So we have the data plus the AI plus the process, compounding success.
Absolutely. And also, I think a lot of partnerships have this challenge, if you will, on they may have content in many places. Like they have a PowerPoint here, they have a QBR deck there, they have the pipeline, the joint pipeline with Microsoft from Partner Center and their CRM somewhere here on a spreadsheet. When you think of all these parts and pieces, it's the context that's sitting everywhere, right? But having that context now come into one shared plan, and then AI agents, the partnership agent, which is unique to just the partnership with Microsoft, right? The agent for this partnership will be different than an agent for another partnership. But that agent is trained on that context, if you will, that documentation, the wins, the unique wins that you've had, the case studies that you have. It really understands that now. So for example, we had Greg Petrosian from Data Stacks in one of our on one of our webinars before. He used to run the partnership with Microsoft, and he talks about how lookalike accounts, for example, could be identified. So let's say had a recent success in a banking customer on the solution, queries the AI partnership manager for similar lookalike accounts which has a high propensity to buy score. How can I now reach out to more customers and more sellers on the Microsoft side saying, hey, look at this new win that we had. Look at this amazing better together context personalized to this account. Could I get an introduction, for example? Or could I get to the next stage with the deal? What kind of help that the Microsoft seller can provide? So identifying and curating the next accounts to target as an example. And also these AI agents are incredibly helpful in tracking, right? So a lot of times, because you have such a volume of activities happening, and the partner manager is always the bottleneck, right? There's this whole sales team on this side, there's a whole sales team on this side, but there's a human bottleneck there. So how do you know which one is most important? Which is expiring in a few days, or the next nudge is needed on something, right? So here's an AI agent that goes across the entire pipeline and says, here's the next best actions that one can act on, and prioritizes those. So we are not at a point where AI can do those actions themselves fully, but these are next best actions that it can definitely suggest, and very shortly, once you build the trust on the agents, they can actually go ahead and execute those actions.
Absolutely. I mean, AI is doing things like it's flagging deals that are going cold before they're lost.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's automatically generating seller-ready content. It's reducing private offer creation from days to minutes. It's, as you stated, identifying the right accounts and matching them to the right partners. So
Right.
In a nutshell, it's not replacing people, it's amplifying their impact, and it's bringing everything, to more, so, more to light, and it's actually helping them, reduce churn, reduce the potential of losing a prospect, reduce, all these different things, because it's bringing all this insight and information to them.
Yeah. And Richard, what do you think of this point around repeatability at scale, right? Always found this one unique person who really gets it, right? One unique seller who really gets the partnership and hence is able to do it. But the point is, how do you repeat it with every seller in your company and in Microsoft, right? So repeatability at scale, right? How is AI helping with that as well?
So it's a matter of it's a matter of the solution. So, when they're using the correct, they're using the solution that is flagging and bringing up all this insight, bringing up all the information. It's making sure that their sellers are enabled to use it. I mean, just like all of
Consistent,
us.
right?
Yeah, the consistency is there, like all of us nowadays. I don't think that there's any one of us that's not using AI at some point in time.
Yeah.
Like for me, for instance, I have my three, and I call them my three cousins. So I use Chat, I use Claude, I use Copilot. So those are my three little cousins that I rely on every single day to kind of help me push things out, actually kind of go through and everything else. Even now, so when we're talking about all these different things, the slides that are being presented, this was all done through AI, just based upon data that I had to keep on pushing and revising and kind of going through and saying, I want the presentation to look like this. I want to present this. Now imagine AI doing this for us as far as the presentation, but imagine that's embedded in your CRM, and now
Yeah.
you're really starting to push and say, oh, you know what? It's bringing me all these insights. It's bringing me this. We know partner managers have a lot to deal with. We know account managers have a lot to deal with. Some account managers are dealing with not only with just 10 accounts, but they're dealing with 50 accounts or 500 accounts. That's a lot to remember. But if you have the AI tools and you're using them properly, this is where you can start that shift. This is what leads us here to this section of where the future is now. This is how they can actually take advantage, of the future that's built on the following three pillars. So they're going to embrace the shift where they're going to make marketplace as the default,
Yeah.
co-sell as the motion, and AI as the multiplier. They're going to invest in AI powered partnerships. So they're going to use AI to prioritize, automate, and scale the work that drives the real outcomes. As well, this is what's going to help them win in the Microsoft ecosystem. Deliver the customer value, which is important for both sides.
Yeah.
So out of this whole entire slide, that is the one key part that is important to Microsoft, as well as it's important to the seller. Drive Azure consumption, that's for the end buyer, as well as for Microsoft. But then growing together, that part here, I want to stay on that for a second, because that is where the seller is growing, the end buyer is growing, and Microsoft is growing.
I love this. This is really about compounding the advantage, Richard, right? So we in the earlier question that I asked, it was about, how do you scale, right? With AI agents, you're literally scaling across the world. Best practices, one part become consistently applied to, let's say, other parts of the world. One best practice from one seller gets applied to everybody else. So it becomes that compounding consistency across the board, right? So one question for you, as you think of this future, what can Microsoft partners do now that can put them in a better place with Microsoft Co-sell and Marketplace? What are one or two things that they should do right now?
So one, it's the compounding effect of connecting the data. So most organizations right now are still fragmented. So they have CRM in one place, marketplace data in another, and co-sell data somewhere else. True leaders are the ones that connect all of it into one intelligence layer. What that does is it unlocks a whole. It unlocks it gives them the freedom. It gives them the view that they can
Mhm.
see around all corners. Because
Right.
remember, you have that AI that is working for you 24/7. It's literally pulling in information that is relevant as of the point that you're looking at that deal right then and there. You
Right.
can predict which deals are will close, relationships that are at risk, and where to invest next. That's when co-sell stops being relationship driven and becomes performance driven.
Absolutely. What a joy, working with you, Richard, to kind of put all the material for this thing together, but also working across so many customers as well. We are starting to get some audience questions as well. So I will take the first one. This question is interesting. It's touching on incentives as well. I totally agree with you, by the way. Putting all of this in a unified plan with an agent, the resources, the listing, the co-sell, the marketplace actions, all in one place. This is the foundation for the intelligent partner operating system, if you will, right? So, having said that, one of the questions that the audience member is asking: what steps should be on our checklist as a seller to avoid on missed revenue or even missed incentives?
Having the correct AI tool that's going to surface that.
Mhm.
Understanding, that you want to be able, you want to have that, AI that's going to constantly remind you. It's going to constantly push it, be face front as you're looking at an opportunity. You don't want to think about one opportunity and have it where it's just, oh, this incentive only applies to here. What if you had an AI tool that actually allows you and actually brings incentives to the forefront, where it's actually helping you understand this incentive will work great for this deal. This incentive works best for this other deal. When you have that there, that's the power of AI.
Absolutely.
That's the scale.
We've heard from so many partners that they've missed on hundreds of millions of dollars of incentives over time because they did not understand when to apply. And obviously, you can't get to these post facto, right? You have to get them along. So the AI could be very important in recommending. So an AI funding manager that recommends on a given opportunity or account what potential incentives are available and when to apply for them and how to get it, right? So that's really
So I'm
hard.
glad I'm glad you just said one key thing, post factor. What
Yeah.
happens when they close the deal? They move on to the next one and they
Yeah.
forget about all those different things. So they miss out on the incentives. So yes,
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of dollars are left on the table every year and no one thinks about it until it's too late.
Yeah. The next question in Richard here is what marketplace co-sell actions could an could an in-CRM AI assistant trigger?
That it's gonna be exactly what I stated before. It's going to bring everything into one intelligence layer. It's actually going to show, this is where, it's going to help flagging those deals that as we talked about. It's
Yeah.
going to automatically generate the seller ready content for you to approve. The reducing the private offer time, that's a minor thing because you can kind of go through it, but it's important as far as, hey, if they want the deal now, process it. So if
Mhm.
you have all of this within your CRM, this is where it becomes a fantastic tool. This is
Yeah.
where you're now not having to jump back and forth between this system or that system. You're
Mhm.
literally sitting there and everything is happening in your CRM. And guess what? The not only is the seller activated, but now the partnership is activated. The company is more activated. They're more engaged. They're
Yeah.
scaling because now the seller, as you stated before, that 40-50 minute time frame is now reduced to 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Now in that same 40-minute time frame, instead of dealing with one deal, I can deal with 8.
Absolutely.
Me as a seller, that's key because I've
Yeah.
just literally processed 8 deals in that same 40-minute time frame. Now, what is it? 8 hours a day?
Yeah,
Imagine how many deals and how many things I can go through
absolutely.
when I have that level of efficiency using the correct AI tool and having that within my CRM.
Absolutely. I love this. My top 5 AI enabled actions in CRM that I've seen customers use is first, just the account mapping, like intelligence as to who's my counterpart in the other account, right?
Right.
AI can do account mapping, matching way better than anything else out there. Second is, the outreach to the seller. The AI generated response follows the template, follows the best practice of how to outreach a Microsoft seller, for example, to
Right.
start the co-sell discussion. Right, that writer's block, writing that email, customizing, being different. Like it's a lot of hard work, right? If you think about it. Third is actually scheduling meetings, right? It's crazy how much premium there is on our times and the ability for an AI agent to actually help schedule that meeting with the
Right.
Microsoft seller for that matter. Fourth is, sending the, creating the referral for me to review and send it out, right? So
Right.
making sure all the fields are filled out, making sure my translation from my CRM works automatically with, all the additional insights that AI can add on top to fill the right fields, right? For example, identifying the incentives that could be available there, right? And then
Right.
lastly, the private offer, right? So if you can create a draft of the private offer early, you can have the finance team review it and so on and so forth. So this entire life cycle that we just see is agentified and available in CRM now. And companies, back to your question, right? Your 40 minutes becomes 4 minutes and possibly 40 seconds on a given opportunity now.
Right.
With this insight, and with that time, imagine what you could do more. And with the kind of impact that this has on revenue, the win rates go up, the deal sizes go up, the close rate, the cycle time actually improves as well. All right, next question, Richard. You ready for this? How does AI
I'm ready.
decide which partner is best fit for an account or an opportunity? And what data is it trained on?
So that's actually a fantastic question. So when we're talking about AI tools, AI is trained based upon the information that you provided. If you let
Yeah.
AI just scrape everything across the web and all these different places, you're going to get all this information. And sometimes the information could be 90% right, could be 100% right, could be
Will
80% right.
hallucinate.
It
Yeah,
all
absolutely.
varies. But if you have an AI tool that is now connected to a knowledge base that is within your system, now you're providing it the insight specifically for your organization. Now you're literally telling it, I want you to pull information from the internet, but I want you to pull the information primarily from this source. This is where we live. This is our product. This is what we sell. Here's the industries and all these different verticals. This is what we do. Now it's learning. The more it learns, the better. As you're going through and you're looking and saying, hey, I have this deal, I have this information. Now that insight is constantly being refreshed and updated. So it knows, hey, I need to look here first because this is where, the AI agent, it's working for you. It knows what you want to see. It knows which partners, and it's kind of also looking at the partner. So this way it kind of it aligns and says, oh, this partner would be a better fit. This would actually here. So when you're talking about the better together, it's actually trying to align and say, here's the better together, here's the better fit, here's the better process, here's all these better things.
Yeah, and one of the decisions we took in WorkSpan is that we created AI agents unique for every partnership. That way, the identity of every agent is very clear, and we grounded it, to your point, Richard, on the unique resource of the partnership, not on the public web or something like that. So that makes it very secure. That makes it very particular. The context and the skills that it has is particular to this partnership. So context is your partnership with Microsoft. The skills that it uses is the skill to contact a Microsoft seller, not any other seller on the planet, the Microsoft seller. The skill it uses is the co-sell process, the MSEM process that Microsoft has, not any other sales process, that unique process. the skill it has is the Microsoft Marketplace process, not any other marketplace process.
Right.
Now you see how the agent is very specific to the Microsoft partnership and has just the knowledge of that, and obviously cannot leak information to everybody else because that agent is simply not available to other partnership. And
Correct.
it is not also kind of leaking, it is not trained on other outside information. It's trained on the unique information that the resources and the context of this partnership has. So if you think about the identity, the context, and the skills and the memory this agent has is all tethered and grounded to the Microsoft partnership.
Correct.
And a different partnership may have a different agent, right? It has its own identity, context, skills, and memory, right, that acts on it. And to connect it to the right automations as well. So it's connected only to your Microsoft co-sell marketplace infrastructure, whether it's Microsoft, Partner Center for co-selling, or it's Microsoft Commercial Marketplace. So it also has that automation that is kind of tethered in the right way.
Correct.
All right. This is a lively
question.
community. There's a lot coming in. There's one more question here. Can we take one more question, Richard?
Of course, of course.
This user is asking, let's say we use AI. What do you see as a minimum viable cadence for personally checking in with Marketplace to ensure that everything is running smoothly and avoid any expired inbound leads? So given that all these agents are kind of doing things autonomously or monitoring things for you, what would you recommend as a minimum viable cadence?
Minimum cadence, when we're talking about scale, you want to do it every 2 to 3 days. You want to make sure you're looking. You want to make sure that you have your AI agent trained to actually show that this will be, these things are going to come out and, what's going on. You want it to show, hey, these deals are about to go stale, or there's no action has happened over X amount of days.
Awesome.
Time is the key point across anything, regardless if it's a co-sale deal, direct sale deal, anything like that. But as you're training those agents, as it's working for you, you're setting those parameters and stuff like that. To start off, the minimum cadence is literally 2 to 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have that set, and you want to have that locked down.
Personally, I would push to every day, literally, right? And the reason is we could have AI agents give us recommendations on a daily basis, and we can act on those or not, right? But the hard work that they're doing behind the scenes is available for us every day.
Yeah, but
having said that,
the reason why I said, but hold on, wait a minute, because you and I, we've always been like this. We always push each other.
Yeah.
The reason why I pushed for 2-3 days is because of the fact the AI is going to look every single day and see which ones are getting up to that point. Also, it's going to give you that opportunity to work on new deals. Because remember, every day you want new deals. Every day you want insight on the deal from yesterday or the deal from 2 days ago. So when you were going through that cadence of 2-3 days, now what it's doing is giving that seller their own internal life cycle to actually generate and go through multiple accounts and multiple deals and everything else or whatever. So now that 2-3 days just naturally becomes every day.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Richard. All right, let's summarize this. So if you can bring up the last slide, Richard, can you speak to what we just discussed with the Microsoft community here? What are the key takeaways?
So the future, of course, belongs to the AI-powered partners. So Marketplace needs to be the default. You need to avoid the 7 costly pitfalls. Win with the Microsoft sellers. Focus on what matters the most, driving that consumption, make it easier to sell, be marketplace ready, and definitely building on those strong relationships. Use AI as your superpower. AI will help you cut through the noise, prioritize the right actions, automate work, create predictable and repeatable outcomes at scale. So, to summarize it, you need to lead the shift, win together. So Marketplace, co-sell, AI, that's the formula that you need. So as you can see on the slide, the question is no longer if you will act, it's how fast will you lead?
Fantastic, Richard. Great insights there from you. What a privilege to share this stage with you and discuss the ins and outs of
Thank you.
Microsoft
Thank you.
Co-Seller Marketplace.
Same here. Same sentiments here.
Awesome. With that, let's bring Justin back in. Hey, Justin.
Justin's still on mute. That's the common call thing. You know it is.
You'd think by now I would have learned my lesson. Thank you so much, Richard and Amit. Great presentation. Thanks everybody who watched live for your questions. Really great questions coming in. And again, if anybody's watching this on demand, please don't hesitate to post your questions in the Marketplace community. That is an always-on resource for partner engagement, and we hope that you will engage with our other content that we have in the community as well. So if you're not a member already, join at aka.ms/community/marketplace. Really great session, Richard and Amit. Thanks so much for that presentation today. Thanks for taking your time to share your best practices with our partner community. And thanks everybody for watching. With that, we will go ahead and wrap up. And yeah, have a great day. Thanks everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.